Hi, and welcome back to Purple Collar Life. In today's video, we're talking about log splitters. This must be a log splitter shopping time of year because I'm getting a lot of messages, text messages from friends, email messages, questions and comments from previous videos, and the questions are a lot of times about log splitters, and specifically these two Split-ire log splitters. And the question that comes up the most, if I could only have one, which one would I pick? So let's talk a little bit about these two Split-ire log splitters that I have, and at the end of the video I will answer that question. But before we get there, I'm going to talk to you about how I had these configured, why I chose those options, so that you can kind of get a full view of the research that I did before picking these splitters, and then why I came to the ultimate decision to have these two, and then if I only had to have one, if I only could have one of them, which one would I pick? In the summer of 2020, I was really log splitter shopping. For the dozen or so years that we lived here before that, I had been borrowing my parents' log splitter, splitting firewood a whole bunch at a time, and then returning the log splitter to them, or splitting by hand. Both ways worked fine, but I was ready to have my own log splitter, so I started the research process. And I actually made a video about looking into all different types of log splitters, and I came up with the conclusion that for me, for my purposes, Split-ire was the right brand, and the size model I wanted was the 2265. Now I want to talk to you about, in August of 2021, we got this 2265 Split-ire, and some of the ways I configured it specifically because of some of the things I was looking for. And remember, I was comparing this to a lot of things. I was comparing it to commercial splitters from Easton Made and Wolf Ridge. I was comparing it to box store splitters, and I kind of wanted something that was in the middle. I wanted some of the features like a log lift, a good Honda engine. There were some things that I was looking for that the Split-ire really fit the bill without having the huge bill of some of those more commercial machines. So let's take a look at this and the way I've got it configured. So I don't remember exactly, but the base price of this before I added these options, I believe was somewhere around $2,000. I added on some things that made it a little bit more expensive than that, but things that made it much more valuable to me. So the biggest and most important one to me was the log lift. I wanted a hydraulic log lift so that I could roll logs up here to the bottom, lift them up. If they're big, heavy hickory rounds like this or oak, that's so much easier on your back. And also for me, it's much easier on my back to split at this horizontal level than even those ones that are horizontal and vertical, and you can tip them upright to do the vertical splitting. So you'd roll this log on its end, flip the log splitter up to the vertical mode, and then splitting down against the ground. That's even worse on my back, I think, than lifting this up and just getting it onto the horizontal surface for splitting. So for me, I wanted a horizontal splitter with a log lift. The other nice thing about this log lift is, in its upright position, it's a lot of space, a good table space. So you can lift, 2, 3, 4 logs up, leave them on the table space, slide them over, and then what I do is I work on the other side of the machine. Over here, I split away at this side of the log, put that into my IBC tote or in the back of the side-by-side, and I just work my way through the stock that I've got coming into the cutting knife. Now, another big advantage of the Split-ire is that the Split-ire machines have two-way splitting. So you're splitting on the extension and the retraction of the hydraulic ram or the piston, the cylinder. So your split time, your cycle time is actually cut in half. So this piece of equipment advertises a cycle time of 6 seconds. That means 3 seconds out, 3 seconds back. So that means in 6 seconds, I'm actually splitting 2 pieces of wood. I've got a whole playlist about these Split-ire log splitters. I'll put a link to that up above and down below in the description. And there's a lot of other reasons, some of the engineering aspects that we won't talk about in this video, but there's a lot of engineering advantages that make these splitters, at least in my personal opinion, superior to anything else available in this price range and this size range. Another option that I went for was the extended drop tongue, because I knew I don't split in one location. I split wherever I've got the firewood cut up. So I take the log splitter with me to the splitting area. I haul this with the side-by-side of the tractor. I load the split wood into the back of the side-by-side or on the big tool rack, and then I take it up to my wood piles where I stack them. I know some people take their wood to a splitting area, and that is their splitting and stacking area. For me, since we have so much acreage and I don't know where I'm going to be cutting up firewood, it's easier for me to take the log splitter to where the wood is getting cut up, and then bring the split pieces back. That's just the system I prefer. So since I was going to be towing it around with the four-wheeler or the side-by-side or the tractor, I wanted this tongue extension and drop down. Without this option, the tongue is actually right here. So you'd have the ball right about here, which means your turning radius is reduced if you're towing this with something like a four-wheeler, because you're going to be hitting the sides of the splitter on your tight turns. The longer tongue with the drop is a better solution for towing it with the tractor, the four-wheeler, or the side-by-side. Since I knew I'd be moving this thing around through the woods, probably down the road to my parents' house, maybe to friends and family, I opted for the upgraded 4-bolt axle with the heavy-duty wheels. So this means it is able to be towed up and down the side roads from place to place, and then easily through the woods. So you know that that's not the standard single spindle axle that you'd see on like a box store splitter. Another option that I selected was the Honda GX200 engine. I don't have anything against the other engine types, but I've had really good luck with Honda small engines, and the GX200 is awesome. I have no regrets for that small upgrade price to put the Honda engine on this splitter. I'm gonna have this a long time. I want it to be dependable, reliable, and in my personal opinion, a Honda engine is the way to go. Obviously, the prices have gone up over the last 4 years since I bought my Split-ire 2265. So let's talk about, if you were configuring this today, what this would cost. This is classified at 18 ton. If you watched the video about the 5 reasons I like the 2265, explains in that video why that number is a little bit misleading. 18 ton is, I would say, very conservative. Point number 2, this is a 6-second cycle time. And remember, a cycle is up and back, so you're splitting 2 pieces of wood in 6 seconds or 1 piece every 3 seconds. And the current lead time on this is 2 weeks. Now, when I selected this splitter, the lead time was much longer than that. And I don't remember, I know it was during COVID, I know lead times were way higher. I was thinking it was 12 to 15 weeks, but right now they're at 2 weeks. The base price of this machine today at the time of filming this video, and again, we are in March of 2025, the time of filming this video, if you got the base model, it would be $2,730. Now, if you compare that to the prices of some log splitters at the box store, you're gonna see that's not much more than what you'd pay for those. In fact, the log splitters that I've seen at Tractor Supply and Home Depot locally, they range from $1,000 to a really cheap one that probably wouldn't last you a long time. I wouldn't want to rely on it, and it probably can't do a lot of the splitting that this log splitter can do. And they go all the way up to $3,000. And again, even the $3,000 one isn't going to have a log lift, isn't going to have those type of wheels and tires, isn't going to have the Honda engine. So let's talk about the way I've got this configured if you were to buy it today. Like I said, the base price is $2,730. That log lift is $528 addition, worth every penny. Not only for the lift capacity, but also for the table space while you're working. The Honda engine upgrade is $300, again, worth every penny. And then those 4-bolt hubs with the heavy-duty wheels and tires, heavy-duty hubs, $157. In case you were wondering, what is the cylinder size in that? That is a 3-inch hydraulic cylinder running the knife back and forth in the 2-way splitting action. And the cylinder is contained within the box frame, which is a 5-inch box frame. In October of 2023, I added the Split-ire 3465 to the collection. And you might be asking, why did you get another Split-ire splitter? Well, first of all, I got another Split-ire because I really love the 2265. If you're asking, why did I get this one a little bit bigger? Let's talk through some of the options, the way I've got this configured, and why I chose those options. Okay, so I would never again own another splitter that doesn't have a log lift. So obviously I put the same options on this machine that I had on that machine. The log lift, the drop tongue, which in this case is a much bigger drop and a longer tongue, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute. Still had the heavy duty wheels and tires, but you can see these are much larger tires and wheels. We'll talk about that in a minute. Honda engine, again, I upgraded to the GX200 engine. So those things being the same, the differences between the 3465 and the 2265, a couple key things. I wanted to be able to use a 4-way wedge. So this machine easily lets you interchange between the 2-way cutting action with a 2-way wedge and then 2-way cutting action with a 4-way wedge. The other thing this machine has is an 8-inch lift. So this is an 8-inch taller bed height than that machine is. That means I'm splitting up here without having to bend over at all. But look at this working height. Nice and tall. I'm not bending over at all while I'm working on this, not bending at all while I'm using the control levers. I found that after a long time splitting with the 2265, it doesn't seem like it's that much shorter, but 8 inches is a big amount. You can see the log tables down here where I'm leaning my shoulders in, maybe bending over at the back a little bit, even the handle I'm bending over a little bit. So that was why the 3465 was something I was interested in for the higher bed height, 8-inch optional lift, 4-way splitting wedge, and then all the other options that I really loved about the 2265. Now this is a much heavier duty machine. You can see this is a 6-inch square tube for the frame. It uses a 3.5-inch hydraulic cylinder. It's a longer frame, a beefier frame. It's got heavier duty everything because you're using a 4-way wedge instead of just a 2-way wedge. So that's all heavier. You can see the supports are heavier. The log table is not only longer, but there's a lot of angle iron and extra pieces of metal to give this the strength it needs to lift heavy stuff. Another question I forgot to answer on the 2265, lift capacity according to the machine is 250 pounds on that log lift. I don't know that I've ever gone over 250 pounds, but I do know that there have been times where I've been lifting a lot of heavy logs or a really big piece of oak, and the lift doesn't shy away from the ability to lift it. What happens is there's not enough ballast on the other side. It'll actually tilt the machine. If you've got something really heavy you're lifting out here, before the log lift gives out, the machine starts to tilt because it needs a little bit more weight on that side. With this machine, I haven't found anything that it can't lift, and I haven't yet tipped it over because there's quite a bit more ballast over this way, and it is a little bit wider frame. So the log lift on this, I don't know what the capacity is, but neither log lift has failed me lifting anything. This one just is more stable when lifting heavy stuff. Okay, the 3465, I've got my paper here. This is considered a 20-ton machine, again, because of the engineering. I think that's underrated. It's actually much stronger than that, in my opinion. 9-second cycle time, so 4.5 seconds out, 4.5 seconds in. So you're splitting either 2 splits or 8 splits in that amount of time if you got the 4-way wedge on. 2-week lead time right now. Again, really fast turnaround if you order these from Split-ire, and I'll put a link to them down below. This is not a sponsored video in any way. I just really like the Split-ire company. Base price of the 3465 is $4,639, so pretty good jump up from the 2265. With the options I have, so the log lift, the longer tongue, the bigger wheels, the Honda engine. So before I tell you, and the answer may shock you, before I tell you which one of these I would rather have if I could only have one, we'll talk about that. But before I do that, people ask, is the 2265 strong enough? It seems like a small machine. Rolling it onto the lift. We're going to split about this much off of it, and then we'll split back through this to make some smaller pieces. Turn my throttle up a little bit. So still not full throttle. Obviously, I was expecting that to split right through. It wasn't able to do that, so if that happens, and again, real TV here, if that happens, you can use another piece of wood up against the block to get this off of here. Now, what I did wrong probably was try to take too much of it at a time on the first split of this hard hickory. So let's compare. We're saying this doesn't have enough power to push through on one pass through, not the center, just a little off center. We'll get this off of here, we'll try it on the 3465. Because for some of you, that may make all the difference in your decision, whether or not you can get through a big round like this. Again, I thought this would make it through. Obviously, we didn't. See how that little piece just allowed me to push this off of here. Let's give it a try on the 3465. Start up the 3465, a little bit of choke. I now see there's also a knot over here we were cutting through. Try to do the same spot. Lined up exactly the same. Got all this space now for the other piece of log to sit down here while I split away at this one. All right, so I came back over here to the 2265. We'll turn this back on. We'll split through the rest of that with this. So if I could only have one of these two splitters, and believe me, it's not lost on me how blessed I am to be able to have both. I am so thankful for the blessings in my life that enabled me to have the equipment that makes work a lot easier and more enjoyable. But if there were a situation where I were ordering one or the other, having used both now for a couple years, this may surprise you, I would choose the 2265, and here's a couple reasons why. First of all, it feels like it's moving much faster. This one splits just fine, but this one feels like you're splitting much faster because 3 seconds up and 3 seconds back is really fast. Like I mentioned, I have to turn the throttle down because a lot of times splitting by myself, I can't keep up with how fast this thing can go. Second reason is, and this is probably the most important one, is the weight. Like I said, I move this thing around a lot through the woods. And because of the way I configured this, I added a lot of weight to it. That longer tongue, the log lift with all the reinforcements. This thing, while lighter than many other machines, is much heavier than this. So when I've got to compare between the two, I'm walking out to the big building to go out and split some wood. In my mind, I'm thinking, just take the 2265. It's lighter, it's faster. You hardly ever use the four-way wedge anyway. So for me, for my uses, the 2265 is the one I would choose. The other reason is I'm pretty frugal, and the price of this being less expensive, just a bit more than what you'd spend for a box store machine that doesn't have the log lift, doesn't have the Honda engine, probably doesn't have the heavy duty axle. This seems like such a value, such a bargain to me, and I'm always looking for that bargain, that value, something that's really good quality at a really good price. The 2265 fits the bill. The 3465, again, you can't go wrong with this machine. It's an amazing machine, but when you've got them sitting side by side for the work that I'm doing, I find myself most of the time going to the 2265. Now, if I had a lot of big rounds like that hickory that the 2265 couldn't cut through the way I was trying to split it, I'd probably take the 3465 out. It does have a bit more horsepower to push through that wood. It's built a little bit heavier duty, so I'm lifting those heavy rounds up. I'm not worried about it tipping to the side as much as I am with this one. So there's advantages to each, but the question I get a lot is which one would I choose if I could only get one? If I could only get one, I'd go with the 2265. So for those of you who've been emailing me because you are log splitter shopping right now, enjoy the research process. I always like the research process of watching videos and going to the store and checking things out, and even getting a chance to try these pieces of equipment if you get a chance to try them at a show or an event. Again, it's going to depend on your situation. I'm so glad that I have both of these so I can pick the right tool for the job when I head out of the building. There are advantages to each and there are disadvantages to each. Hopefully this video helped explain, at least from my perspective, when I choose each one. And again, if I could only choose one, why I would go with that 2265 machine. Thanks for watching. If you found the video informative and entertaining, please give us a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below about your shopping experiences or your experiences on what machines you think are the best value, the best bang for the buck, and the best tool overall for in your toolbox. Again, Either one of these, in my opinion, are far superior than anything you'd buy from Tractor Supply, Home Depot, Lowe's, Rural King. I think this is just that grade above the typical homeowner grade. And again, the major differentiator for me is the hydraulic log lift. Saves your back, provides a great workspace. So that's a feature that you can't find on many of the box store machines. And just one of the many reasons I went with the Split-ire brand, because of that log lift at a homeowner type price range in a heavy duty machine, plus the two-way splitting and all the engineering behind the machines. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again the next time.